There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, if you like.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
Hello and welcome to the Power Chord Hour Podcast, episode 36. Thank you so much for checking out another one. I'm very, very stoked to be with you here. As always, I'm your host, your producer, the dude who gets guests and writes stupid things on our social media pages. It is your host, Anthony Merchant, here with you. And, I appreciate the support from everybody. And I've been having fun, during this. I mean, I've been doing the show for a couple years now, but during the whole pandemic shit, when you're sitting around and you're a little bored or you're like, what should I do with my time? It has been great to have this and really fun to have the social media aspect of it. It's something, it's really not new at this point, but you think like years ago, like it's not really, social media wasn't a thing that would go, then again, podcasts weren't a thing years ago. So, but even from like the radio aspect of it, like, doing the radio show now for a couple years, it's like, 20 years ago, there really wasn't that aspect of it, where you'd be on air and you'd kind of you'd talk to people like listening and stuff on there, obviously, if they call in and, however other ways, like remotes, when you go host like a remote, maybe people show up and stuff. But with social media, it's nice because it's a new way and another way to like promote the show and get the word out. But like then you meet people who, listen to the show, or hell, I mean, I'm sure there's people who follow us on social media who've never even listened to the show. I'm sure there's some of that as well. But it's very rad because you just start bullshitting with people who, including with something like this, who you start finding those people who are into music just as much as you are, who would be into something like a show like this, where I just go so in depth into, music most of the time that I don't feel like, you really hear about a whole lot of other places. There are some other great like punk and alternative podcasts out there. But, like mainstream wise or like commercial radio or like on bigger podcasts and shit, probably stuff you won't hear on there or, artists that they talk about. And it's just really cool to have, social media to just bullshit with people who, find the show or just, like I said, find you on social media, have no clue what the hell the Power Chord Hour is. And, just see that there's a dude on there posting things about bands that they like as well. But has been tons of fun in a great way, while everything's going on and you can't really go out and socialize much. It's a great way to just go on there and just talk about music with people. And also get jealous of people's collections. There's a dude right now, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. So sorry, I cannot give a shout out, but I cannot remember his handle. But has just been showing me like stuff in his collection of just like, things you get at live shows, like picks, set lists, like drumsticks, just all that random stuff that, is funny because it's kind of worthless if you're not the person who got it, but it means everything to you if you have it. I know, like when he's showing me that stuff, like I'm getting a kick out of it and I know what he means. Cause I mean, I have like towels, that like, the singer of a band had on stage and then like, threw off, or at the end of the show is just like sitting there and you take it and it's like, it's just an old ratty towel to anybody else, but like to you, you have that whole story behind it, and it's funny because that stuff to me is worth more than what you can get at like the merch booth. Like, $20 t-shirt's cool, but what's even cooler is if you end up getting that set list and, like get like a signed set list or like a broken drumstick or something, like something like that becomes way more, way more memorable, I think. And something like I hold on to those more too. Like even though they're free things, like I don't throw away set lists and picks and stuff. Whereas with t-shirts, not that I throw away t-shirts, but they end up on eBay eventually, or you donate them. Not all of them, but if you're cleaning, if I'm cleaning out stuff from my collection, and as I do like to downsize. I like to keep things fairly minimal, and the almost anything's fair game eventually if I go like, why do I still have this? Except for that stuff, like those really just a sentimental value to them where it's like, I'll get rid of this, and this, but I will not get rid of that half broken drumstick that'll give you a splinter if you pick it up. But, very, very fun on social media lately, and really this past year, just talking to like-minded people about that stuff. And, on top of that, too, the email, I always throw it up here, but, it's no secret. You can find me, powerchordhour@gmail.com. But you ever just want to bullshit about music or whatever? I love hearing, from listeners and all that, just talking about music and stuff like that. It's fun. We're all kind of stuck in the house and whatnot, and we're bored. And, it's a good time to show each other your pick collection and your set list and stuff, and also talk about the stupid things that you've done at concerts, because we all have those. And we're not going to share them on podcasts, but we have tons of dumbass things that we've done, and we can all share them privately. And maybe one day that'll be an episode. But like, I'll have to get some friends on here and just like share dumbass stories, embarrassing stories of concert goers, because you do get them after a while, and just embarrassing or funny or whatever. There's always that's the thing I miss about shows too, is like with virtual shows right now is, yes, you're seeing live music, I mean, in a different capacity and everything, but it's like you don't get those like opportunities to like meet people, whether those be friends or just random idiots in the crowd who just you end up having some funny interaction with, and it just and just everything around it too, like really for me, I talked about with last week with Nick from High on Stress, and talking about all the great venues in Minneapolis, and there are just so many. But going from a place like that where just you just go to a show any night, it's like, oh yeah, like I can just go to the show 10 minutes from my apartment, and then I'll be back by 11 or whatever, and then I go to work the next day, and it's like all beautiful. Where as growing up, and even currently, because I'm in Jamestown right now recording this. And I guess I'm not going to shows right now, so I don't know that I can say currently in that sense. But, growing up, going to shows in like this area, in the Jamestown area, shit doesn't come around here. So if you want to go to a show, unless you're talking like something local, but if I want to go see like a band that I really like who's touring, you got to go, you really got to plan your day around it, because I would have to drive like 2 hours, one way to go see it. So really you're in the car like 4 hours, just to go see a band. And then on top of that, it's like driving back at night, leaving school or leaving work early, and, all that. And I'm not complaining too much, because it actually, in the end, is a lot of fun, including like in college. I had a lot of fun doing that. Like, there's just so many, there's people that I met, there's things that I did, there's things that I saw that like never would have happened had I lived in a place. I guess this is the silver lining that I kind of look back on that on, and never really minded, because like I said, it is fun. It becomes an adventure, but also becomes more limiting. You're not going. I still went to quite a few shows, but not to the point that you probably would, if you lived in a city. And once again, these shows were 10 minutes from you every night. I mean, hell, you could go to 5 shows a week. But make no mistake, I still saw tons. But just the whole thing of like, all right, well, I got to leave work early, or I got to leave school. Like, what time do I leave by? What time will that get me there? And then it's like, but then it'd always be fun, because then it's like, okay, well, if it's a day, where like I'll have some time, it's like, okay, like what are the record stores? What are, including, I think my go-to move for the longest time, for years, really for years, shout out to JT Woodruff from the lead singer of Hawthorne Heights. He would be like my go-to guy. Like anytime I was going to a new city to see a show and I knew I had some time to kill, record stores are my number one thing, and they still are. But good record stores, good guitar store, and some good vegan food. Those are like my 3 things. And JT didn't really help on the vegan stuff. I'm pretty sure I remember him talking shit on me eating a veggie dog once in his presence. So he doesn't direct me to the vegan food. But as far as like record stores and good guitar shops go, for years that was my thing. Would just hit him up. It's like, hey dude, like I'm going to Columbus this week. Like I've never been to Columbus. Where do I go? And he's like, all right, like you hit up this place, and this place, and never failed. Like the dude knew what I was looking for. So it's like, he was always good for that. He's like, no, this is the record store you want. Don't go to this one. This one's shitty and overpriced. You're going to want this one. Like if you're looking for like weird old punk music, you want to go to this one. And, and it really did. It made it so fun to be to be like, okay, like, sure, I have to drive to like Cleveland to see a show, but it's like, celebrate the fact that I'm in Cleveland. And if I got an hour or two to spare, like, what cool shit should I go do, you know? And just tons of my stories and stuff that I've just had in my life that would not have had if I always lived in a place like Minneapolis where, you know, I could just drive 10 minutes to a show. And once again, very beautiful. I gotta say, like, just because I'm not used to that, it is a beautiful thing to like get out of work at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon and then be like, oh, I'm going to a show later, but that show's not for like 5 hours and it's only like a 10-minute drive. So it's like, you can go run errands, you can go do other things, you have like all this time, and then you go to a show and then you don't have a 2-hour drive back. That's the other thing. It's like, I gotta be at work in the morning, but it's like, oh, I'll be home in 10 minutes. It's such a beautiful thing. But I also feel like I don't have as many fun stories as I do from the ones where it's like, yeah, I drove like 3 hours and then I went to this record store and then I ended up in this part of town and then I ended up here and then up there and then I went to the show and like I ran into this person there and, you know, like stuff like that you just get from traveling around, going to those shows and stuff. But that is something I miss. I just miss live shows in general. But that's the one nice thing, and I would like to hear about that too, because like I know I'm not the only one there. Like, people, basically, if you love live music or bands and you don't live in a metropolitan area, like that, like I'm far from the only person who's had to drive hours for shows. But it's like I always, and actually kind of going back to JT for a second. I mean, that dude grew up in I think it's St. Mary's, West Virginia. And I've had those talks with him before. I mean, he came from a place where there weren't shows where he was. If he wanted to go to a show, that dude drove. Like, if I'm not mistaken, he kind of grew up the same way I did with that, where it's like, if no use for a name or someone, and I use that because I think he has seen them. That dude's seen some ones that I've been jealous of. But it's like, you know, if no use for a name is playing around you, they're not playing in your town. They're playing like 3 hours from you. But if you want to see that show, God damn it, you're going to drive 3 hours. Like, and you know what I mean? Like, and it's normally, the gratification is great. Like, I got to say, I mean, I've been to some shows that were stinkeroos in my life, but like, I don't know, I really haven't been to many shows. I can probably count on one hand the amount of shows that I've been to where afterwards I was like, I wish I didn't drive, 2 hours to see this band. I very, very rarely have I had that, because there's always just all this fun shit attached to it, you know? I still, the best show I ever went to, a house show in a suburb of Pittsburgh to see Tommy Stinson back in 2016, just this awesome house show, and like, it's still the best show I ever saw. Now, don't get me wrong, Their Places is my favorite band. I got to see one of them literally play a living room like 10 feet in front of me, playing like every song I wanted to hear and whatnot, but that was just one part of the night. Like, that's my favorite show ever, because there's like 5 or 6 hours worth of other things that went on that had nothing to do with the show itself. And, once again, just things that you wouldn't have gotten. I made tons of friends that night too. And people who I still talk to and still connected with. And, just like things that I wouldn't have had I just went to a show in the city that I lived with friends that I knew. Like I went to a show in, I don't remember where it was. It was like 20 minutes out of Pittsburgh, not far or anything like that, but a suburb I'd never been to. I know I didn't know anyone there, but guess what? You leave at the end of the night and you go, oh shit, I just met like 5 people. And, that's where you start making those memories. But, I love talking about that stuff. But, if you're one of those people, I'd love to hear from you. Like I said, bullshitting with people, hit me up. And if you kind of come from like a smaller area or just a place, the other thing, maybe you just live in a I believe what they call like a B market, and bands just don't play around you all that often. So if you wanted to see the good shows, anything good, you had to go to like the next city next to you. But I'd love to hear that stuff, and if you appreciate that as well, and I grew up with that, so it's like it never bothered me to go there. I mean, it sucked when you're like, oh man, I'd like to see these 3 shows, but they're all like back to back in Cleveland, and it's like, well, that's just not you can't do that. But the flip side of that, though, like I said, it's so much more of an adventure than just this one small part of your day. And I know that because, like, living in Minneapolis, it is just a part of your day. You don't have to plan around it. Like, all of a sudden, it's just like, oh, yeah, I'll get out of work. I'll go get dinner. I'll go hang out with a friend. I'll go work on this and that. And then it's like, I'll just go to the show later on. Like, so easy. Like, just one part of your day. Whereas, before it's like, no, you got to carve time out. Like, how long is it going to take me to get there? But I'd love to hear from you if you kind of have that same thing. And maybe you're the same thing right now. I'm saying it past tense. Fuck, maybe you live somewhere right now where you still got to do that. It's it is what it is, but it's worth it when you want to go see some good ass live music. But that is not what this episode is about. So I'll get off that topic. Really, what I wanted to talk about on this one, and if you haven't figured out 15 minutes in, there is no guest. It is just me and you here. But I was really excited because just these past few weeks, I have finally watched a trilogy of documentaries that I've wanted to see now, I would say probably close to 15 years. And that is The Decline of Western Civilization. I mean, talk about a cult classic there. There are 3 of them. And for years, this thing, when I was younger, I really loved on VH1 and VH1 Classic, all their I don't even know if you call them documentaries, but like the little music docs and little like hour-long, specials and stuff, and behind the music and all those different things where they would go on about, like the 80s and hair metal, or one would be about college rock, or, would be about punk in the 70s and stuff. And the first thing that I remember about The Decline of Western Civilization would have been one of those VH1 ones about, the Sunset Strip and hair metal and just all of that, all basically what metal was, the popular side of metal in the 80s. And there was a lot of footage from the interviews from The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, the metal years. And the Chris Holmes interview, the old guitarist of Wasp, that was probably the first one I ever saw. And if you know the film, you know what I'm talking about already. It's quite iconic. This is all shit you can YouTube as well, and definitely see. And I highly recommend. Before we get in, already I can tell you, I highly recommend all 3 of these. But it is funny. Number 2 is probably the most interesting. Number 1 has the best music, but number 2 is interesting. And I'm going to get into this and kind of compare them. And, they compare and contrast and whatnot. But, my first exposure was the footage from the metal years, the second one. Which to me, when you're watching those, I am, while my first love is like punk and alternative and all that, I don't mind hair metal. Like, I'm more of a hits guy. I like the hits of hair metal. There's really no band from that era that I would say I delve really deep into. But if we're just talking singles and radio hits and all that, all those bands are good with me. Your Poisons, your Def Leppards, your Motley Crues, all that stuff, your Wingers, I don't care. The hits are fine. They're good. But I've also always been very interested in that time because that was really one of the last eras, I think, of that, just the debauchery, the degeneracy, and just everything surrounding it. It was a very interesting time, for a lot of it, that had nothing to do with music. But, at the same time, too, to kind of play as devil's advocate, we could probably also say that about the punk bands in the first Decline, and the third one, with just talking about things that aren't about music, going past the music and getting into the other things where it's like, well, isn't it all about the music? And it's like, well, there are other aspects to it. And I've just always been not even that I romanticize it. There's a lot of criticisms of the hair metal, era. And sure, that's fair, but I really do. I think that was one of those last, including when you see grunge, and and I'm not saying anything here that hasn't been talked through music history hundreds of times, but kind of the anti-rock star, the not so much part, that's the other thing too, is you had hair metal where they're all drinking and doing coke and stuff, and it's a party and it's kind of more social. And then there's the more inward, ness of grunge, and they're all they're doing heroin and stuff, and they're all kind of it's all insular. It's not really a party. It's not really the social thing. And, it's also kind of more serious. And, as far as music goes, a lot of that grunge stuff, is a lot better in my opinion. There is more value there. There is more than just, hey, it's just one big party. But with that said, I don't like the criticisms that hair metal gets sometimes, because you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with having a genre where it is just kind of fun like that. Like, I don't put on Poison I don't think like Poison ever wrote like a thinking man's record. Like, that's not really something I would put on, to get me through something or to feel a certain way. It's fun music, and that serves a purpose. That serves a time and place. Like, not every song has to be a downer. Not every song has to be, like, there's a time and place for everything. Like there's good political songs, but not every song has to be political. And same with, there's good party songs. Not every song has to be about a party though. And, hair metal was very much, I think, ingrained in, the party and all of that. Obviously we had the ballads and stuff too, because every bad boy does have a soft side. But, like, there was that side of it, but it's very much a big party. And, I think one of the best things that the decline of Western civilization does for all three of them, but really encapsulates that time and place. And for the metal years, you watch that, and the just excessiveness, the over the top with everything, and also kind of the overconfidence or the blind confidence or the stupid confidence, whatever you want to call it, that a lot of them did possess in that film. But I think really what Penelope Spheeris did, who directed all those, and she also directed Wayne's World. It's probably like her biggest thing. But The Decline, just huge cult classic, music docs. But I think what she really did was just document that for like that was all gone. Like, I was born in 92. Like, I was not there for hair metal. It was dying as I was being born, basically. Like, as I was coming out of the womb, it was going into the grave, if you will. And that's a whole nother episode, because people talk about that with like grunge and grunge killing it and this and that. But it's like, are we just going to ignore that music trends change like every couple years? Like, if it wasn't grunge, it would be something else. Like, shit just changes. Like, polka music could have been the next big thing. In 1991, polka music could have killed fucking hair metal if that's what ended up being big on the radio. Like, it just so happens that that's what got popular. And and the other argument too, in my opinion, I've always thought this way. I go, if everybody drops you the second that another band comes out, maybe those weren't actual fans. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that was the general public listening to the songs that they played on Top 40 radio, but I don't know that those were particular fans. Like, if all of a sudden they go, Nirvana put this out, so I no longer am going to buy the latest Skid Row record or something, like, to me is just total, it makes zero sense, honestly. Like it makes enough sense where I go, yeah, there was a new trend, something else came out, and that's what grunge was. It was a trend. It was it had its time in the sun, just like hair metal did, and I think anything that would have come out would have done that. I don't think it was just grunge in particular, that was just happened, right place and right time. But pre-grunge, like, The Decline too is just such a great like time capsule during its really, this movie was released in 88, so she was putting this together in the mid 80s there, like 86, 87. So this is truly like in the middle of it, in its heyday, the middle of these bands being huge. This is, 1988, like, that's like, I think Nirvana became, started in 87 or 88. So this is like, Nirvana's just starting. They're years from being anything. Grunge is really years from being anything. It's not even called grunge at that point. So it's like, this is hair metal during it. This is Sunset Strip as, I don't know if everyone thinks about it this way. It's funny. I went to Los Angeles in 2016, and that's very important because I want you to remember that this was 2016. So even in 2016, we're talking, what would that be? That's already almost 30 years removed from the Sunset Strip of 1988. But even then, I guess it's because that's all I'd ever seen of it was the footage from, the hair metal times. And I thought of like the Rainbow and the Whiskey and, just all those places. But like, I went down there and it looked nothing like it. And like, I was so bummed out. And it really wasn't until after the trip that I started going, well, yeah, dude, you're like comparing it to 30 years prior. And now I look back and I go like, that was kind of foolish of me. I'm like, oh my God, like there's so many like trends and different things that it's went through in 30 years. Like, of course it's not going to look like it did then, you know. Not that I was expecting people to have like big ass puffy hair and stuff, but I just didn't assume it would look as modern as it did, I guess I should say. You know, I mean, obviously the whiskey and the rainbow and all that's still there, and the Roxy. And, you know, a lot of those like staples are still there. So still very cool to see. But at the same time, I was very bummed driving through going like, this just kind of looks like any modern street in a city. Like this isn't what I remember seeing there. But I mean, you know, really Penelope is very responsible for, you know, really the images that I conjure up when I think of the Sunset Strip and what I was expecting when I went to go see it. And, you know, I mean, going through like the bands that she interviewed and also performed, you know, Faster Pussycat, Poison was in it, you know, Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, Ozzy did some interviews in it, a very famous one with him shaking and dropping the orange juice, which I have heard that was staged, but it's really like one of the only things that's staged in it. Like for being a film that's been out this long, because there are just parts that are just kind of ridiculous where you go like, oh my God, like is that interview staged or is that part this or that? Not really. Like most of it, minus just little things like that, it was all very real and raw. But I mean, if you're looking at 88 and the people, you know, she had in there, also Wasp, like I said, I mean, Chris Holmes has probably one of the most famous interviews in all three of those. I would say that's one of the most infamous, famous, whatever you want to call it, interviews in the whole thing. The band London, which Nikki Sixx actually started, he was out of it by then, but they're in there, and obviously you got to have Lemmy because you're talking about the Sunset Strip, so he was interviewed for it. But I mean, a huge list of people from that time. She got some really good people, and what I really like about it is, like, I think probably the best documentaries do this. And sometimes you're watching it just because, like I mentioned, the over-the-topness, the excessiveness, some of the ridiculous shit. You go, is she trying to paint this stuff in a positive light, or is she trying to say, I mean, you know, the film is called The Decline of What? Is she truly saying this is the decline of Western civilization? You're looking right at it. And I like it because it really toes this line. And for one, the people that she has in these films, like, it's someone who knows something about the music. Like, you look at who she has and stuff, and you can tell it's well-researched. Like, she knows what she's talking about. She really picked some good people to be in this thing. And it seems enough where you go, well, she has to know something about this music. You know, she's not like a conservative mother, like Suburban Housewife, who, like, did a documentary to, like, show all those evil satanic bands that her, you know, son was listening to. Like, it's not like that. So it's just this very interesting, like, kind of neutral, we just kind of let them do their own thing. But it does beg the question still. Like, when you're watching, like, Chris Holmes pour fucking, like, you know, liquor over his head in a pool, you go, like, you know, is she trying to tell us that, you know, there's something wrong with the scene here? Or is she, because there's still the other sides where she is showing, you know, these packed, sold out clubs, and she is showing all these shows and all these huge bands. And there are parts where you are watching these young kids with dreams and aspirations out there trying to make something of themselves, you know. But she also does show, you know, the people who obviously are in denial, who have no clue what they're going to do outside of this, have no real plans. And, you know, also just, you can tell, like, are just kind of there. There's even people in there who aren't even, like, musicians. I'm not even talking so much about the bands in there, but I mean, there's just people who are part of those scenes who that was their life, you know, and you do wonder where most of these people are now. I mean, it'd be extremely interesting. There's a couple accounts out there, but I would really love to see something with, you know, with, like, tons of those people from the three of them. I don't know if they'd want to be in them or not. You know, some of those are not super flattering, so I'm sure there's certain people in there, including the ones who weren't musicians. Like, you know, I think Chris Holmes is kind of, you know, owned up to that and has talked about it and stuff. But he was a guitarist in Wasp and has, you know, stayed in music in the limelight, if you will. Whereas, like, some of the kids who they interviewed, who, you know, were just, you know, like, including in the first one back in, like, 1980, you know, like, those people are like at this point in their 50s and 60s, and, they may look back on that and cringe, like ones who aren't limelight or anything, like who just went on to have normal jobs and normal lives, like they may not look back on it as fondly. But, like even with that said, it really does beg the question. Like but I think it's more of a neutral look more than anything. I want to say that Penelope is giving you more of a neutral look. Like you get good and bad with it. There's never a time where it shies away from the bad. But I think there's also parts where you can look at it and go, I get why these people are a part of what they're a part of, and I think she successfully does that. If she had a bias, then, you could watch that film and it could either be, hey, we're trying to like paint this like, punk rock's this cool thing. And like, we're going to like not look at like, the rampant like homelessness and runaway teens and, the rampant drug use and like all these other things. It's like, no, we like look at both sides of it. Like we look at these great bands, but then we also like look at what they're doing off stage and like the demons that they have. And I mean, because to be honest too, for as many people as I would like to see a Where Are They Now off this film, there's a lot of them who are just dead. I mean, whether it's performers, I mean, look at in the first Decline, obviously you have Darby Crash in there from the Germs, who is no longer with us. I mean, the third, I won't ruin. I feel like it's kind of a spoiler if I do mention one in the third, but even before the film came out, there's a couple of them that were dead. Like that was it. Like, and some really like twists and turns in there. So it's like, it's interesting because it shows some people in there who are well adjusted, who love the music, who love the scene. And then there's other people in there who, are kind of justifying the bad parts of it, or like, well, it's not like that and stuff. And then you see it's like, oh, like, no, they were troubled. There were issues there. And I like it because it's a look at it, and here's the pretty parts, here's the ugly parts, but we're going to show you both of them, and I think that's what a good documentary does. But I mean, the second one is really kind of fun. I think there's more parts that you can laugh at and stuff. And once again, still a very cool time capsule and kind of time and place with hair metal in the 80s and kind of everything that went with it. And I like the, like I said, whether you want to call it like stupid confidence, blind confidence, like whatever it is, like there's a lot of people in that time where they're just talking about all the bands on the Sunset Strip, the insane amount of competition that there was, but like they had this mentality. I mean, one you got to go check out if you've never seen the film. Wet Cherry, I believe he was their guitar player, but he has a certain segment in the film where they're like interviewing him, and like the way he's talking, like he could not see the band not making it. Like she's asking him like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? What will you do if this band doesn't make it? And there's just no, and I mean, like yes, you've probably heard that people, and there's like the cockiness, like, well, of course they're going to make it. But it's like the way he's saying it and the way he's conveying it, you can tell there is nothing else. Like he's not, like she's asking backup plans and stuff. This is it. He cannot see it going another way. He thought they were the greatest thing of all time. There's no way they wouldn't be the biggest band you've ever heard of. There's no way they wouldn't be filthy rich and famous. And, I mean, now you look back and laugh. I mean, Wet Cherry, have you heard of them? Probably not. They're, I hate to break this to you. Wet Cherry did not become, the biggest thing in the world. They're not going to be inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame next year. But, like, yes, you can laugh at it, and it is funny. But at the same time, if you put yourself in the shoes of what I assume was probably like a 20-year-old dude living on the Sunset Strip, playing guitar, every night at a different bar, it's like you do start to really kind of appreciate or admire that, like, really that fire he had. It's like, yeah, you look at it from outside perspective and go, this guy's, like, this kid's fucking nuts, like, like the way he's like talking and stuff. But it's like at the same time you go, you know what though, if he truly believes what he was saying, then it's like, that's admirable. It's something where you're like, that's something that only like really someone young and going for it, I think you really find it in. So it's like, there's something I think about it as you look and you go like, it's cool. Like, sure, it didn't happen, But it's like, it is kind of neat to be like, hey, he truly believed it. And maybe that's what you need to make it. Maybe that's what you need to decide, hey, I'm going to pack up everything. Like, I forget where he's from, but I don't think he was originally from LA. Most of those people weren't. They moved there from somewhere else, So it's like, maybe you need to have that anyway. Maybe you have to be that person. Maybe you have to be the guitarist of Wet Cherry to, pack up everything and move from like Idaho to LA where nobody and have like no money to your name, and you and your band just try to, really stick it out, including at a time where there were so many local bands, they talk about it in the film. And I mean, I feel like the scene was doing really well and there were tons of places to play, but there were still tons of bands playing. So, you are fighting with other bands to get that, to get that stage time. And yeah, I think maybe you did need to be that guy who thinks, what are you talking about? In 10 years, I'll be filthy fucking rich playing, Madison Square Garden. Like, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but, maybe you need to have that. But it's just very interesting. It's very interesting to look at that, at that time. But once again, like I was talking about, where I think some people might look back on it more fondly than others, it depends how you look at that. I mean, I can look at it and laugh at all of them in all of these films, because let's be honest, there's ridiculous interviews in all of them. She's interviewing 18-year-old kids. That's what she's doing. She's interviewing 18-year-old kids who are into what at the time was it was basically the big thing to piss your parents off. You know what I mean? Like, look back at the first Decline. That one came out in 1981. We're like 5 or 6 years removed from, punk rock hitting in 1977. Like, this is still a fairly new thing. Like, we're kind of into like second wave bands now. I mean, like you're kind of past, Sex Pistols are broken up at that point, and the Ramones are a couple records in, but you're still pretty new in there. And that's really when the hardcore side really started. And that's kind of who she talked to. She talked to a lot of, not even a lot of, like all basically West Coast bands. But I mean, in the first Decline of Western Civilization, I mean, Fear's in it, X is in it, Germs, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Alice Bag Band, Catholic Discipline, like, some more of the hardcore side of punk rock. But, at a time where it was new and stuff. And a lot of these kids, which once again, this kind of goes back and forth where it's like, is she like, showing this to you so you laugh at them, or is she showing it to you like from a cultural aspect where it's like you should listen to what they're saying and whatnot? I kind of like to think, number one, I think it's a little bit in the middle, but I think more than anything, it's not malicious. I think it's more of this is explaining to you, you don't get why these kids are like, shaving X's in their heads and putting, safety pins through their noses. You may not go out and buy, the new X record after you watch this documentary, but maybe you'll at least understand why they are the way they are. Maybe you'll get why, that guy is wearing a studded leather jacket, with like a crimson skull on the back of it. Like, you may not love it. We may not convert you into a fan, but at least you may get where they're coming from now. But it kind of goes back to that where, they're interviewing, like, I don't know the guy's name. Funny enough, I did see, though, about where they're now. He is a folk singer now in, I believe, Portland or somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. So good for him. It's very cool. But he's that bald-headed kid in the first Decline that they interview. It's in black and white. And they interview him a couple times. And a lot of the things he's saying are ridiculous. I mean, but nothing that ridiculous for a, SoCal, like, punk hardcore kid from 1980, to say. But you look back at it and you kind of go, yeah, I mean, he's not a philosopher. It's very outdated. A lot of the stuff he's saying is outdated and old, and it's not just like anything else. It's like that was the thing at the time where you were young and wanted to piss off your parents, whereas now it's like we've had 15 things since then. But, you look at that and you go from one aspect, you go like, yeah, you do kind of laugh at it now, which also I do have to say, I wonder if I'm looking at this through eyes of someone who wasn't, because I wasn't there for, I was born, the third one came out in 1998, but the first two came out in the 80s. I wasn't born for that. So I'm looking at these through kind of, nostalgic glasses or whatever. I'm someone who wasn't there for those eras of punk, so it's like I only know what's being told to me and, secondhand stories and stuff from people who were there. So maybe when this came out, and it probably was, because like there really was, like the first one did not get screened in Los Angeles because the police sergeant at the time thought it would incite riots. Like they would not let it premiere there. They could not let it have a screening. And so, I mean, that kind of shows, that was still at the time when punk was dangerous and stuff. So, you look at it now, and once again, it's kind of that time capsule, and, it's just so long ago. I mean, literally, they're interviewing people in this film who were younger, who were like 10 years younger than I am now. I'm 27. They're probably 17 then. But that was in like 1980. Those people now are like 58 years old. Like those people are now like you were looking at the youth culture of the time, and those people now are eligible for AARP. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I may be looking back at it more like, oh, this is kind of, not outdated in a bad way, but I'm just like, this is a time and place. It's a time capsule. And, I kind of look at it that way, whereas really this was maybe more serious when it came out. You would listen to what those kids were saying with, with maybe a little more seriousness if you were hearing it, a year after it was recorded or something, like I don't know. So maybe I'm looking at it that way. And it'd be interesting to talk to someone who had watched it when it came out, or at least was even there for those scenes during that time, and really kind of what they think about what the people were saying in there in the interviews, and kind of how they described what was going on. Because I think you do feel attacked too. I mean, you look at those interviews with those young kids, including in the first one, and those people are getting attacked anyways. Punk was not taken lightly, including in Los Angeles and stuff. I mean, you'd get shit thrown at you when you're walking down the street. A lot of people didn't like you. A lot of people didn't like the music. It really, like, it was a way to be cool in a way, but it also probably wouldn't make you Mr. Popular with everybody. You may find friends within that scene, but it's not going to make you the most popular kid in school, dyeing your hair, fucking blue and wearing a germ shirt, which is funny because, years later, you would kind of look at that, back in like 1980, it's not that way. Now in, say 1992, 1993, now it's starting to, grunge. And then in 94, like with Green Day and stuff, it's like, then it starts changing. And then like the cool kids are listening to, Dookie and stuff like that. But, it wasn't particularly a thing to make you cool and stuff so much. It was still a dangerous thing in 1981. And, you're like looking back at that, and I think a lot of them are young people who have been defending why they do what they do, why they play the music they play, and, maybe on a little bit of the defensive. They might have some defense there when it comes to talking about that. And I think that's the thing. It's funny because sometimes they build it up in ways where, like, even me, like, and I love the music, I love all of that, I love the film, but you do watch it, and even at times where I'm like, I love the albums and the bands that they're talking about, but even at some point I'm like, you're putting too much into why you, like when they explain why they have dyed hair and listen to loud, fast music, like, some of them go on these diatribes where I go, now I don't think people believe it, because now you're doubling down and making it more than it is. You know what I mean? Like, because these people from the outside may try to belittle it or make fun of it, so you try to make it serious and legitimize it, but then you go a little too far, but it's like, there's still, I mean, there's parts like watching X get interviewed while they're all getting like tattoos in their kitchen. They're just sitting there all getting like basically prison tattoos in their kitchen while they talk to the camera about, punk rock and their band and everything. And it's just, and just talking about the ridiculous shit that they do, and just like, the party of it, because it's the other thing. And that's why I laugh at it, because we can laugh at hair metal and stuff, but I feel like old school, like punk and hardcore, doesn't get the shit as much. And it's like, they were party animals. It wasn't as like, I don't think it was the same way though. Like they weren't as objectifying and shit as hair metal was, but like, punks were like doing the stupidest things too. Like, let's not pretend that some of those guys aren't talking about like getting just fucking wasted and like, setting things on fire, or just starting fights for no reason, or, like even like fights with cops, like, still going out there and like yelling "fuck you" at a cop and throwing your beer at them in the middle of the street and stuff, like just punk shit basically. But like there are those aspects of it, and that's what I was talking about earlier, where like, yes, we're talking about, oh man, it's all about the music, but there are aspects of it, which Penelope shows, where it's like, there's a culture that goes with it. It's not, we just listen to this music. It becomes a lifestyle, and it becomes, a whole thing. It's not just what you listen to. It becomes what you wear. It becomes, your friends. It becomes your life choices. And, and that's the thing. You're getting this all from extremely young, naive, idealistic people, So you do laugh at it, but at the same time, you do have to remember it's like they're interviewing a kid off the street who and was probably like drunk at the time anyway, like talking about like the circle jerks and stuff. Like, so you do look at it sometimes and go, it's kind of weird just because now we're, almost 40 years removed from the first one here. I mean, next year celebrates its 40th anniversary. So time has passed, but I do think you kind of look back at those and it's like there's some humor, but then it's like I also respect it because I'm like I get what they're saying. Like, yeah, they're homeless living in squalor on like the streets of LA, but you know what? The music and the people they know seem to mean something to them, and a lot of times it's the only thing they had. So it's like there's aspects of that where you don't laugh. You're like, oh, like that it's kind of sweet, and it really does show that the people who were belittling punk and stuff at that time or calling it like useless music and stuff. It's like, no, that's not the case. Like it really did help a lot of people for shit that wasn't good, or the people who didn't make it out. There are a lot of people who probably did because they had that music or because they had their band, or whatever. So once again, I think in the first decline, just like the second one, Penelope shows both sides. She's not really like you watch the Black Flag one. That's another, I would say that's probably one of the most, like if the Chris Holmes interview is like the big one from the second one, I would say the Black Flag interview in the first decline is probably like the, like the most well-known part of it. And it's showing them in an old church and like where Ron Ray's and I forget, a couple of them lived there. I don't think Greg Ginn lived there, but Ron Ray's did. Chuck might have. I can't remember everyone who was in the band at that time. That was obviously because Ron was there. This was after Keith was gone. And Keith was also in the film, but at this point he was already in Circle Jerks. But yeah, I forget everyone who was in the band, but like half of them lived in this church. And I mean, it's a rundown room. I don't think there was heat. Like they basically lived in a closet. Like not even basically, they did live in closets. Like they're living in this squalor. But the way it's presented to you, it's kind of like this, part of it's like, oh my God, it's crazy how they're living. But then there's another part where it's like, I also respect it where I'm like, including now, because you look back on those legendary, like, I'm watching the Black Flag performance in there, which is probably the best performance in the first one. Like really, Ron Ray's, after watching that, I think he may be the best Black Flag frontman. Of all of them, that may be the best era of that band because my God, was he good live. Like he stole that thing. Like him just fucking jumping into the crowd and them going nuts on him going nuts on them. Then like when they break into depression, like he's just going insane on stage. Like one of the best performances in the first one, easily. But like that whole thing where they're showing that, it's like you look at it and it's like part of it's this funny, kind of funny thing where you're like, wow, like look at how these punks live. But then the other part's like, that's kind of cool they did that. And now Black Flag is this like iconic part of pop culture from that time. I would say, even they're like the Misfits, where it's like there's people who don't even know Black Flag's music but know the name or at least the Bars logo, the black bars. Like they've definitely left a mark on pop culture. And you're like watching it and you're like, hey, they had that determination and shit that which once again kind of comparing it to like the Wet Cherry Guitarist, it's like it's maybe different, but it's kind of the same where you're looking at another person who's like, we're just fucking determined. Like this isn't the best way to live, but it's like this is how we have to do it. Like this is how I can make rent. Like at the time Black Flag wasn't making money, and if it was, Greg Ginn wasn't giving the rest of them any money. Even if Black Flag was making money at that time, the rest of them were not seeing it if their name was not Greg Ginn. But like they're like living in squalor and shit at that time, but it's like, look at what we got. Like, look at the music we got from them. And it's like, they had probably, they may not have said it or been, articulated the way that the dude from Wet Cherry did, but really, are they that different? Or are they both like young musicians in their early 20s living in Los Angeles, just trying to make it, like in a budding scene that has a bunch of other bands, like their contemporaries, but also their competition, and they're just trying to make it. It's like, one song about how you can't see them do anything else, going to be the biggest thing on earth, and maybe Black Flag and they would be the biggest thing on earth. But, if you're living in a, in a rundown church like that, the basement of a church for, I think at the time, Ron Ray says it was like $17 a month rent was. So, I mean, it's like, it's those things you give up for that. And it's like, I feel like, it's not totally different from that. It's kind of the same sentiment, just done or shown differently, really. But that's what I like about these is it kind of shows that whole like, yeah, we're young and dumb, and this is what we're doing. And maybe dumb isn't fair either. Once again, it begs that question where sometimes you're watching this and you're going, are those people dumb, or are we, is there a part of you that's more jealous that you're watching it and going, they like, that's something you probably couldn't do. Like most people watch that and you can laugh at that, but you go, would most people go live in the basement of a church to try to like live out their dreams? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure if you ask Ron Ray's now, those are probably some of the best days of his life. Like, so you do watch it and you go, yeah, there's part of it's like, maybe they're poking fun, but at the same time, Penelope's also kind of showing you like, no, this is the determination. This is what it takes. It's like, it ain't beautiful. It ain't pretty. But, this is what they're doing. And I can't get over that. I love how she does that. And I saw there's not a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but these films, if you haven't seen them, for one, as of right now, as I'm recording this, they are on Amazon Prime, but they did just finally get released on DVD and Blu-ray for the first time back in like 2015. Like these you could not find for a long time. Like I'm sure they were like on YouTube and stuff, like their clips and whatnot. But this thing did not really have a proper release for decades. And the third one here that came out in 1998, a lot of people didn't even know that film got made until this box set came out like 5 years ago. But extremely, extremely cool. I don't know all the reasons why it was so hard to come by for years. It's been a cult classic. And like I said, I mean, I've seen tons of clips on VH1, like 15 years ago. That's how I even knew what it was. But, just watching it has been well worth the wait, and I'll definitely watch them again. But, like The Decline 2 is cool because I do have an interest in the hair metal and the Sunset Strip in the 80s and that whole thing, and maybe even more than the music. Because like I said, now like Motley Crue is great. They like Dr. Feelgood's a great record. Too Fast for Love is a solid fucking debut record. I don't care what music you listen to. I know we talk punk and alternative on here. I don't care what genre you're talking about though. Too Fast for Love, that's how the fuck you start a career. That is a debut record that is hard. That's like a gold standard, including in that genre. That should be a gold standard for like, that's how you write a first record. But we also got to remember that if you don't know this, I've read the Heroin Diaries, Nikki Sixx's journal entries from back in the 80s. That funny enough, this is absolutely true. My 10th grade earth science teacher borrowed from me. And that motherfucker never gave it back. So somewhere out there, my 10th grade earth science teacher still has my copy of the Heroin Diaries that I let him borrow in 2008. And 2009, I think it was, that I let him borrow it. And my ass never saw that again. But, him talking there, what I'm getting at is Nikki Sixx was a punk rocker. Like that dude listened to punk rock. So it's like you look at like Too Fast for Love. Yeah, it's like it's metal, but it's like those dudes also listened to punk. A lot of those hair metal guys did too. You look back and it's like so many of them did like Ramones covers. And I mean, for one, look at the Misfits not the Misfits. Metallica basically gave the Misfits like the reason the Misfits are as big as they are. You 100% have to give credit to Metallica. Like people would not have known. Besides the people who were there when they were around, I don't think people would have known who the Misfits were had Metallica not went and done that. I mean, like 100%, all the covers and wearing the merch and all that, like 100%. So, I mean, I just always think that's cool because as someone who's more ingrained in punk, but also like does like hair metal and stuff like that, a lot of people in punk music are more judgmental where they're like, nah, fuck that, fuck Guns N' Roses, fuck this and that. Whereas a lot of those dudes, though, from those bands wouldn't be that way. Like, you would probably like those guys. You're like, no. Like, don't fuck Guns N' Roses. Like, Duff McKagan, like, was a fucking punk rocker. Like, that dude was a punker. Like, he listens to all those bands that you do and probably knows most of those guys, But, and actually, a lot of those guys would probably tell you the first Decline, they probably were, huge fans of. But, it's just interesting, kind of the differences and similarities, in the punk and metal that is shown in Decline 1 and 2. And then like really number 3, I know I'm talking a lot about the first 2. Those are the best. Number 3 I think is worth watching, but at that point I think it's not even that it's better. Here's kind of what I was thinking about it the other day, because I'm like, number 3 is not a bad film. It's worth watching, but it's not as good as the first 2. But I think my thing is this. What Penelope did on the first 2 is really encapsulate a time and place. And also she just so happened to interview a lot of the bands who had become the most important bands of those eras, whether we're talking hair metal or, punk. Like, she talked to people who, when you look back, like, who Fear and the Germs and Black Flag and the Circle Jerks are. Like, those are huge bands from punk rock. Like, so when you look back at this, not only are you seeing historic performances, really, like, about these bands in their heydays, like, you're getting interviews from these bands who there's not tons of, like, really, like, I don't think Darby Crash, there's probably not tons of Darby Crash interviews out there or video footage of him, and you have it right there. Like, it's really this time capsule of, Los Angeles with the punk rock scene in the early 80s and then in the mid to late 80s with the hair metal scene there. And what she did on the Decline 3 is, there's still the bands there. It's still the same format. She interviews bands. There's live performances. She also interviews, kids who are part of that scene at the time. Once again, mostly like early 20s. But I think on this one, part of my thing is I don't think the connection of bands is there for me. And maybe it's a personal thing, but like on here, the bands that are featured in the Decline of Western Civilization 3 were Final Conflict, Naked Aggression, Limbidus Green, and the Resistance, and then also Flea and Keith Morris made cameos. They were in the first one as well. But like that list of bands there, honestly, the only one I had ever heard of before the Decline, or before watching that one, was Naked Aggression. That's the only one I had ever heard of. So I didn't have the same connection with the bands. Like going into the Decline 1 and 2, I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, like there's the Germs, there's Black Flag, or like there's Ozzy Osbourne, there's Alice Cooper, like, these are people I know and love, like this is cool. Whereas, and I think it becomes a big thing because those people, the people, who John Doe is, who Ron Reyes is. So it's like when they're getting interviewed and stuff, I'm watching it going like, oh shit, like, like those are legends. Whereas with number 3, I just don't have the same connection with the bands. And no disrespect to the bands, they ended up not being the same ones. I also, though, think she did that too. Because you hear a little shit talking on that film, but at this point, punk was pretty popular at that point. Punk and ska, and like I was talking about, on our 1995 episode a few weeks back. But just how punk and ska and alternative and all that was just really big at the time. And this was kind of the other side of it. These were the local bands who weren't, and it's funny because there's a little shit talking in there. I'm like, you hear people mention like The Offspring or Green Day, and it's like, those little, little jabs at them and stuff. Because at the time, those are the big punk bands or bringing punk to the masses and are like, making it uncool or whatever. You definitely hear that from them. But like, and I don't know, I think it would be a different film because here's the thing about that. What they focus more on, I think, in this one is the kids surrounding it. But I think Penelope might have did that on purpose. I think what she did more in this one was she showed you the kids living around it and more of the connection of how all of them kind of came from, which in all the films they do kind of bring up their backgrounds. There is also that like the little bit of psychology in there where it's like, oh yeah, like this person ran away from home. This person, like they don't know who their father is, or, they had an abusive, mother or father or whatever it was. Like, there's reasons for why they, kind of were where they were. And, she definitely did that in the third one, but I think she did it more and I think made it a bigger point to kind of point that out. Like, which once again, kind of, while not all of it was healthy, it's also like, this is kind of the only place for a lot of them to go. And it's probably a reason why a lot of them are still alive or doing anything. Now, it also showed, the ridiculous parts. Hilarious. I forget the name of it, but like a lot of these kids were going out to like go in front of like Man's Chinese Theater in Los Angeles and just take pictures with tourists. Like, I forget what it was called, but take a picture of the punk. Like, as they do, they'd like put their spikes on, they put their hair up, just basically the stereotype of what someone thinks punk looks like, and just go, charge tourists like $5 for a picture. And, just shit like that to get beer money. Like, that's what they did. Or, they'd live in an apartment for a month, basically just go month to month, just destroy it, go to the next one, destroy it, go to the next one. Just different things like that. Another one, and there's actually a few things I don't want to spoil in the third one, which I will say, I think there's more things you could spoil in that than the first two. But there's something she does very well, letting you know about one kid's situation. But he's basically I'll just say he's on disability, and kind of how, some of the kids are kind of, but once again, kind of goes back and forth. Are they using him, or, are they truly his friends and stuff? But they're like showing like the squalor they live in off like his disability checks, and just what they all do for money and beer money. That one, though, there's more of I also think because she talks to a lot of them who aren't musicians. You look at the first two, and a lot of them are talking about, they put themselves in these situations and they're living the way they are because they're trying to do something with their band. They're trying to make money and make a living off their art. Whereas, in the third one, they're talking to a lot of these kids who are basically just gutter punks, and, who now it's just a lifestyle. They're on the streets just getting drunk and fucked up every night, and going to like punk shows to see the bands. But it's not, they're not in the bands. They're not touring or have the goals. A lot of them are just like, where will you be in 10 years? It's not, well, my band will be huge. It's, I'm going to be dead. You heard that a lot in there, to be honest. Like you would hear, which is very sad, because once again, we're talking about interviews with, not 10-year-old kids, 18-year-old kids here, who you ask them that question, and some of them kind of say it jokingly, but a lot of them, like, no nonsense, like they've thought of this before. It's just like, I'm going to be dead. Like, I'll be fucking dead, man. Like, there's nothing else I want to do but, like, just party with these, people on the streets, and just, go to punk shows. And I realize I'm going to live fast and die young. Like, very matter of fact, which a lot of them once again did. A lot of these people are not around to do a Where Are They Now kind of thing, which is extremely sad. But I think she did that very well in the third one. Like, to me, I don't go to the third one for the bands. Like, the first one, I mean, oh my God, like, you just talk about, I posted that I was watching it on, like, I don't know, maybe, I think it was Facebook I put a couple weeks ago, and I was watching the first one. I'm like, man, I've wanted to see this forever, like, such good bands and stuff. And just like, I had so many friends who were like, fuck yeah, like, I love, like, this is my favorite performance. And then you'd hear someone else like, my favorite performance was Black Flag. And then someone else like, no, Circle Jerks was the best one. Like, just everyone has a favorite. Like, there's so much like classic stuff in there and classic bands that everyone has like their favorites in there. Whereas with the third, I don't feel like you go to that for the music. You're going more for those personal stories, and also the connection that, Penelope was kind of making the whole time, but really showed in that one, where, a lot of kids who were in the hair metal scene and the hardcore punk scene the first time, and then 20 years later, 1998, were coming from places where they didn't have other places to go. This was where they had to go, and for better or worse, it saved some people, probably killed others, but, really that reality of it. And once again, going further than the music, this one more than the other ones, we're showing more than just the music. Like, it's almost like punk rock is just part of it. Like, those bands are what they listen to. It's also about how they react with people in society, how society reacts to them, how they're looked at, because Penelope also does that. She does interview, like, I forget the dude's name, but like, I think he was like the chief of the LAPD in 1998, and like showing how he depicts punks, what he thinks of them. And she's very good at interviewing him too, because she's, she like asks them straight up, just kind of straight questions, but also be like, do you ever make fun of them? Do you ever hassle them? Do you ever feel like you're a little too violent with them and stuff? And, you also get that where you see her like, oh yeah, cops were probably fucking with them as well. She's good at covering all those bases, which once again, she's not going to make you look like an angel by any stretch of the imagination. She didn't make these like, all these punks are good people. A lot of them are telling you on screen, it's like, yeah, I make money however I have to make money. It's like, I rob people all the time. And just no remorse either. Like, it's just a way of life. Like, that's just what I have to do. Like, this is, which once again, very sad when you think about this is the mentality of, basically a child. I mean, really a fucking kid, a 19-year-old who, is out on their own, basically by no choice of their own, because it was that or live in an abusive household. And she does a great job really showing that in the third one. But it is interesting too, because I feel like there was a lot going on at that time where, like, you know, in the 80s, yeah, there was other stuff. Like, I mean, sure, like in the first one, if she wanted to, she could have focused on, say, like new wave or, you know, like some of the other like alternative things that were going on at that time. Like college rock was a little new at that time, so maybe not that, but you're just focused on like the hardcore punk. Whereas I feel like in 1998, there were like a lot of, you know, you could do like the ska side, the more pop punk side, this hardcore punk side of like, you know, those bands who weren't on major labels, who weren't, you know, playing arenas and stuff. You know, that was the other thing they talked about, was like the one band she talked to was like, what's the biggest audience I ever played to? And it was like 300, you know, which nothing bad for a local band, but like you compare that to some of the, you know, like some of the guys in like the metal years who, I mean, already when she's interviewing like Alice Cooper, I mean, that dude's playing arenas and shit, you know, you're not playing to 300 people. And it, you know, that also shows the difference too, like a lot of them being kind of content. And also I think a lot of them realizing people aren't going to touch what we're singing about and stuff. Like they're not, some of them realize it. And then it's funny because some of them have this kind of like, you know, fuck major labels, they just don't get it, man. Or it's like, well, if they're going to sign me, they have to realize I'm like, they make it out to be this thing where major labels are the reason, like major labels, we're just too real. Where in reality, they're singing songs about like, you know, breaking into people's homes or like just anarchy or like fucking burning shit down and stuff, where it's just like, I don't think it's the major labels. I just don't think that's going to sell to a mainstream audience. I don't know that it's like Geffen Records holding you down, because at the end of the day, if Geffen Records thought that your gutter punk band was going to make millions of dollars by singing about like living on the streets with your dog and like panhandling and, you know, taking pictures with tourists while you're all decked out in your punk gear, they would sign millions of you. Like, trust me, they would. Like, if that's what made money in 1998, gutter punks, like that's what would have sold. But it wasn't. Green Days and shit were like the more popular side of that was, you know, the less the side that was a little easier, you know, not so rough around the edges, if you will. And you know, it's just funny about that though with some of them, because like even I'm like. And I like the music enough that they're like playing, but I'm like, you listen to them like, yeah, major labels won't touch this, that. I'm like, dude, if they thought they could make $1 million off you, they definitely would touch that. They would have no trouble, you know, getting in bed with your band if they thought your band was going to make them money, but they know they're not. You know, it's funny like that, because it is more underground. You know, I think. The second one really shows that at a time where those bands were doing really big, and even the smaller bands that she interviews, it's like maybe they weren't the biggest bands in the scene, but that music was doing something and they had a good chance at making it, you know, whereas, you know, these guys in 1998 were playing the opposite of what you would hear, you know, like kind of the opposite of like The Offspring or Green Day or whatever, you know, kind of the other side of that. Which just wouldn't have sold, you know, nothing to do, I don't think, with the major labels. I just think what they were playing just wouldn't have been very mainstream friendly. And I also think it goes back to kind of like I was saying, where she's showing more of the, I feel like this one more focuses on the people who are part of that scene instead of just the bands in particular. Because like with the first Decline and even the second, like there's like maybe a handful of people who are really memorable, who like, you know, get interviewed throughout the thing that you really remember, you know, who weren't like a musician. Whereas with the third one, I remember interviews and people from that documentary a lot more just the people who are a part of the scene than I do the actual bands who they interviewed. And I think that's part of it, because if you had went with the more mainstream side of punk, you know, in 1998, I don't know that you would get that story, you know, that side of the story with the gutter punks. You know, gutter punks weren't the ones probably listening to the more popular punk stuff. You know, they were the ones listening to Final Conflict and Limited Screen and all that. You know, that was kind of went hand in hand with that scene. So I think that's probably the other reason why she picked those ones. But I do think that's the interesting thing of there, is it becomes more about the people and the scene and kind of the stuff that isn't about the music, but the stuff surrounding the music, than it is the other two. Though I will say too, I think this one has less, like even now, you know, the first two kind of have parts of it where you can kind of laugh at it, and some of it meant to be, some of it not meant to be probably. But in the third one, I don't feel like there's as much of that. It's a lot more of really a look at something that was an issue, that still really is an issue. But, just like teen homelessness, including in an area like Los Angeles, and, the things that they went through to, live day by day, and where a lot of them come from, and, the similarities, their backgrounds and things like that. It really does. It becomes, for being a music documentary, I once again, I would love to one day interview Penelope Spheeris about, she has a huge career. She's done so many films. And actually, I didn't know this until today, but she apparently did the 90s Little Rascals film, which would have been my introduction to her, because I'm pretty sure I would have saw that at like probably age 3 or 4. So that would have been what I knew her from, and not so much the decline. But she's done, like I said, Wayne's World's like her biggest thing. And she's also like Suburbia. That was her. She did a bunch of other like music-oriented ones. Then she, went in and did more, different like comedies and whatnot, like in the mainstream. But has really done a lot of cool shit for like punk and metal and that whole thing. And really great interview too. I got to say, extremely interesting person. Just after watching those films, going down a rabbit hole and kind of getting into her work and hearing her talk about the films. And I like hearing from her and her like talk about them. Like you can tell that it was her that got those great, like there's a reason why she got great answers and great moments of those films. And it's kind of like how it's one of those things where like you don't realize that with a good music producer. And I've talked about when I interview them on here, where it's like people don't think about it, but to be a good music producer, for one, you have to be able to convey things that other people can't. Like it's not just about being a good musician, because there's a lot of good musicians who are introverted and, are not good at conveying their emotions to other people. They're not good at giving direction either, and they may not be great at convincing people of things. Whereas as a producer, you do have to be kind of more extroverted. You have to be able to let someone know when what they're doing is good, when it's bad. You have to direct them in a certain way. Sometimes there's people, I remember talking to Michael Beinhorn a few years ago, and I forget exactly who we were talking about, but, and I'm sure he was talking about more than one person, but I think there was someone in particular we were mentioning at that time, and how he was saying you had to make them think that your ideas were theirs. Like, so you had to point them in the right direction, but they couldn't think that it came from you. You had to do it in such a cunning way that he was the lead singer of a band, and I can't remember who it may have been. Soundgarden, maybe it was Chris Cornell, but I don't know. I won't throw Chris under the bus like that. But whoever it was like they would not take advice if you gave it to them. So you would have to give them advice, but you have to do it in such a way that they thought it was their idea and that they came up with it. And that's a talent. That is something that people don't think about with producers. And it's the same thing with someone who is doing a documentary and interviewing these people. And that's what Penelope does. Like watching the behind the scenes and also just watching interviews with her and kind of realizing her personality and how she looks at this and how she looks back on those films and stuff. You can tell like she is the reason it was so good, because you could get someone else in there and interviewed the same bands and got nothing. Because also remember, she's talking to unruly punks here. It would not have been hard to interview. I'm sure it would not have been hard to interview, Black Flag in 1981 and have all of them tell you to go fuck yourself and not answer any of the questions, and also probably be weary that you want to come like record the place they live in, like shit like that, where you have to. There are aspects of that you got to be good at, and she's absolutely amazing at. But I wanted to talk about the the trilogy there. I would love to talk to her sometime about it, and also just love to talk to people who are in those films. So many good ones. But on top of that too, after watching the first one, I've been on a huge like old school punk kick. Like it just got me. Like I like the band X, but after watching that, I went back and like I've always known some of their songs, but I really went back and like listened to their record Los Angeles and a lot of the classic stuff, and I'm like, oh my God. And not even just classic stuff. Alphabet Land, their record that came out this year, which you've probably heard people talk about, because people who are fans of them, all you hear is like, oh my God, like this is really, really good. And I just listened to it. My God, it's like they never stopped. It's insane. They have not put a record out since like 1995, I think was the last one. And Billy Zoom I think did play on that. He didn't play on a couple records, but I think he did play on like the one they put out in like the mid 90s. But this is the first one since then. We're talking multiple decades here in a band who are 40 years in now. Like, you know, it goes back, like I was talking about, like, you know, that original Decline, they're interviewing them, and they're all like, at that point, they're maybe not early 20s, they're like mid, like they're still fucking young. They're still like 26, 27, like, you know, not to paint it like they're really old then, but, you know, they're like, I don't know, like, you know, in their 20s then, and now, I mean, they're still at it. They're like in their 50s and 60s and fucking kicking ass. Like, I'm telling you, you got to go check out Alphabet Land. Like, it's insane how good it is. Like, I turned it on, and even on the first song, like, Exene's voice sounds like, I'm like, oh my God, like, you can tell. Because sometimes you put it on, you're like, is this going to sound like them? Like, what is an X record going to sound like in 2020? And then you put it on, you go, holy shit, like, this song sounds like they wrote it in the 80s. Like, she's singing, like, her same cadence and stuff is like, wow, like, this is, you know, then John Doe comes on. It's like, oh, fuck, like, he's still great. Like, Billy Zoom's guitar playing, amazing, you know, so good. But, you know, really, it's just gotten me on such a kick with the old school punk. And even bands like not in the first Decline. I remember after watching the first one afterwards, just getting on YouTube, starting with old Black Flag live footage. I started with that, specifically Ron Ray's era, because after watching that film, I'm like, I got to watch more. I got to see Ron Ray's with them more. And then just down a rabbit hole of, you know, like Dead Kennedy's live footage. You know, really probably the best, though, being Bad Brains. Watching fucking HR back in his day. And it's funny now, and I've seen him live, and I can attest to this. He doesn't really move around. He's very chill now. And still cool to see, because you're still like, oh my God, like when I saw him, and he was doing this was solo, I saw HR. So he was doing all like his dub stuff and his reggae, and, you know, not the fast side of Bad Brains, you know, definitely not doing that stuff. And it was still really good. You know, it was really chill and everything, but it's like, that's still HR up there. You're like, that's like, that's the guy. Like that, like when you put on Sailin' On, and that, like, just the screaming, that madman who was singing on that song, that's HR in front of you. Like, you're looking right at him. So amazing. But yeah, like watching them back in the day is another one. And you know, I mean, if you're looking for documentaries, I'm already telling you, go check out these 3 Decline if you've never seen them. And if you have, go watch them again, because you probably haven't watched them in years, or maybe even got the box set when it came out a few years ago. But whatever, it's always worth going and watching again. But another one to go watch, you know, speaking of punk rock and Bad Brains, is the HR documentary that came out a few years ago, Finding Joseph, which is really, really good. And I want to say, I forget what he was. I think maybe executive producer, but Jay Moore, the comedian, actually has part to do with it. It was funny because I was watching it, his name popped up in the opening credits, and I'm like, is that the same Jay Moore? Like, I'm like, it's spelled the same stuff. And then all of a sudden he comes on for he's only on screen for, like, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds, you know, just an interview segment talking about Bad Brains. I had no clue he was a fan, which is really cool. But yeah, like, I don't know if he financially backed it or what, but he was like the executive producer of it. And really, really good documentary, which talks about that in HR, because if you have seen him in recent years, I mean, the chillness and the laid back, but also there's been times where, like, he's been on stage, he doesn't really sing, and there's times where he just doesn't seem like he's there. And that documentary gets on that. It talks about things I never knew about HR, just a lot of just mental things that HR has went through and still goes through, and, you know, finding out that he was schizophrenic and everything, and just really explaining kind of why a lot of things have, you know, kind of have went the way they are. But it's an amazing documentary. And I mean, once again, it's like, you talk about, like, with all that stuff aside, you're still looking at a legend. Like, I mean, like, fuck, he was the front man of Bad Brains. Like, watching those old like footage of him, like, at CBGB's, and he's wearing like a suit, like, he's on stage wearing a suit, like, fucking doing backflips, just screaming into the mic, just like just going so ape shit in just a way that you never saw anyone else do. You know, like, absolutely amazing. And it really does, like that's why I liked watching that Decline. The first Decline is, you know, yeah, you see the dumbassery of some of the people, and you see the unflattering sides of what was going on back then, but you also see, like, why it was so important and the energy. Like that's such a big thing too. Not that which Bad Brains is a bad example because they were actually all virtuosos before they started. They all like were rooted in jazz before doing Bad Brains. So I mean, they're all actually good musicians. But I mean, in the Decline, I mean, there's so many bands in there where like you're talking to them, it's like, yeah, they're not classically trained, they're not particularly great. You know, it's even some of them. It's even up for debate if what they're doing is considered playing their instrument. But it's the energy. That's what it is. You know, it's the energy that's in that makes you go. That's why it's so good. It's not because these guys are like ripping solo. You know, like listen to Black Flag, like, you know, which and Greg Ginn has a great, like, he's a very interesting guitar player, but it's like, you know, he's not doing anything all that nuts. Like you're not listening to Black Flag for guitar solos and stuff. And really when they got more self-indulgent and did some of that stuff, that's the stuff people aren't really into. You know, people like Black Flag when it's like a minute and 30 songs and it's fast and aggressive and it's all, you know, fucking power chords and stuff. And, you know, that's something I think you really saw in the first one with a lot of those bands where you're like, you know, it's not that they were amazing musicians. It's that there was an energy to them. You know, there's just an absolute energy. I mean, kind of going back to X, like, you know, I'm listening to, you know, their Los Angeles record, and you're like, it's not, you know, Exene isn't like the greatest singer you've ever heard, but her phrasing and, you know, the attitude in her voice and the way she's delivering those lines and the cadence is what makes it. Like, that's where you go, like, that's why this is so damn good. Now, once again, that's another one. Billy Zoom, amazing guitar player. But, you know, and all of them are good musicians. But once again, that unconventional, we're not crooners. You know, we're not Frank Sinatra. We're not like whatever famous big, you know, we're not like this crazy, you know, whatever your favorite drummer is. We're not this classically trained band. That's not why people like them. That's not the reason you listen to them for that. It's the energy. It's because the songs are good. You know, it's because it makes you feel something. And, you know, I think they definitely capture that in the first Decline. And also just why I think there's so many bands from that era, why even afterwards, like just watching, you know, old CBGB's footage of, you know, tons of bands who really, I mean, and those are East Coast bands. Those weren't even bands featured in the first Decline, but just really reminding you why punk rock was so good and so fun back then, you know, and like, and I don't know, you know, like I said, I was born in 92. By the time I've gone into all this stuff, so many of these records were already 20, 30 years old. By the time I heard them, you know, a lot of these bands have been broken up, reunited, you know, some of them, you know, are dead. A lot of the members, you know, the bands are like dead and stuff, but it's like to look back and be like, wow, like remember a time when punk was dangerous and when it was also new, you know, when it wasn't a thing that has went through all these, you know, iterations or, you know, that was even before a time where you talked about like, is punk dead? You know what I mean? Like in 1981, it's like, it's not even at that time now where now people always like, is punk rock dead or is rock still alive? It's like, that was even before all that. And, you know, just such a great, like, snapshot of a moment in time, you know, just absolutely. And, you know, Penelope Spheeris just did a fucking amazing job. And it was so cool to see those. Like I said, I've been waiting to see those films for like 15 years now. So to finally watch them, I thought it was well worth coming on here and just kind of talking about my opinion of them. And, you know, kind of the similarities and the differences, because there are, I think at the end of the day, like there are differences, but at the same time, a big message of all three of those films are showing you the youth of, not the youth of today at this point, the youth of yesterday, but, you know, the youth at that time, why they were the way they were, you know, why they were infatuated with that youth culture, which and all of it stems from too, just pissing off your parents. I mean, I think most of them would tell you that too, like, you know, they're there and they're dressing that way and saying that shit because it pisses off their parents. And but you know, to see it in such a early time and to see it firsthand too, you know, it's not like they did these films years after the fact and it's like, you know, a bunch of old dudes like reminiscing about that time. No, this was them then. You know, this isn't a band doing a documentary about the early 80s in Los Angeles. This was a documentary about hardcore punk in the early 80s in Los Angeles as it's happening, you know, so well worth checking out, you know, and it does get regarded. I mean, it has that cult classic, you know, following, but it's like, even at that point, I don't think it gets the credit that it deserves. I mean, it's really just such a great document of something, you know, just really, including a time now where there's just so many documentaries on everything you can think of that the fact that she had the foresight to do this at that time, like now there's probably 50 jackoffs who've made a documentary on Black Flag, who've never talked to any of them, just unauthorized documentaries about their career in that time, and who probably weren't even there. But you know what? Forget that. You don't want to see that. You want to actually see Ron Reyes as a young kid, like talking to the camera and like showing where he sleeps at night. Like that's amazing. So cool to have that. So cool to have those out there, and it's cool that they're finally out there to see. Another one too. I mean, totally, for the most part, I feel like. But I know a lot of punks who like Tom Waits as well. But Tom Waits' The Big Time, which also came out in the 80s, which has been out of print for decades. That also digitally just that's on Amazon Prime right now too. I don't know how long it'll be up there, but well worth checking out. I'm sure other digital places too, but that's another one where unless you found like a bootleg online, that thing got released on, I believe, Laserdisc and VHS back in whenever it came out, the mid to late 80s. So like unless you had that, like this is the first time in decades it's actually been properly released, and very cool. It's not. I like Tom Waits and all his eras. I can pick out songs that I like from, but like my favorite era is early Tom Waits, like 70s. I'd say like really maybe like the third record up to like Rain Dogs is my favorite. After that, still great songs. There's great songs all throughout there, but I feel like his best records front to back were really when he was really just heavily influenced by like Kerouac and Bukowski, and really just kind of doing the whole beat poetry to a music thing, but still very cool. Like the theatrics and stuff of the Big Time film, well worth. If you're a Tom Waits fan, it's one of those things where like The Decline, I bet I watch that more in the future. Whereas the Big Time I watched, and I'm like, well, it's like worth checking out. But it's like, I mean, I'm probably not gonna jump at watching it a second time like a week later or anything like that. But still cool if you've never seen it. It is cool to see some of these old documentaries kind of see the light of day, because those are a lot cooler too, once again, where they're done at that time, not later on where it's like we're just reminiscing about how cool it was. It's like this was as it was happening in real time, so very cool. But that is going to be the episode. I just wanted to come on here and talk about Decline and just how fucking good that old school punk rock is, and punk is still great, but I get that way sometimes, and I'll get in those moods where it just reminds me why I love the genre to begin with, where I go back and I do listen to like, Circle Jerk's Group Sex, or, Black Flag's Damage, or, just going back to like the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, or just any of that stuff, like all the first, like the first 10 years of punk rock, if you will. And maybe even more like the first 5, but it's like all those bands, West Coast, East Coast, UK, like, just, and then like, even like Midwest with, like the Dead Boys, just such a special time. You know what I mean? Like what a special era and, scene, and just, it's changed so much. I don't think the punk that we knew back then still exists, just because I think anything, it's the same way where if you tell me you're a hippie in 2020, I don't know. It's this, I don't know how to explain it. Like I love punk music, but there's even people who sometimes still dress like they're going to a Black Flag show in 1981. And I'm not even talking about like old dudes. I'm talking about like 20-year-olds who like are dressing like that shit now. And it's like, it's cool to a point, but if you're trying to tell me that like you're the real deal, or like I'm like, I don't know that you are. Like that was a time and place. It's the same with that, where it's like calling yourself a hippie in 2020 seems odd to me. Like in 1968, maybe you're a hippie, but I don't know that whatever would resemble a hippie now is not what it would resemble, 50 something years ago. And the same thing with punk, in my opinion. I mean, punk exists. Obviously there's punks out there. I love the music. I have no piercings or tattoos. I've never been that person or have like a studded leather jacket or anything like that. Like I love the music, but I've never really, I wouldn't say I dress that part in that sense. And, it's kind of one of those things where I look at it, like sometimes you see people now, it's the same thing where I'm like, I get you're into those bands. Like, look at, dude, I love all those bands that you love as well. But I'm like, I don't know. Now it just does seem theatrical, like to dress that way. I'm like, at that time, even though some of it was silly and they were kids, it's like they still were standing for something. It was just a different time, and I think it's evolved. Obviously, there's still music, punk music, and there's punk. I mean, there's bands like The Damned who are still around, from that original era, and so I mean, they still exist and stuff. I just don't think it exists in the capacity that it did, or holds the meaning that maybe it once did. But either way, we still have all that great old music and still tons of great new music influenced by it. So, I'm happy we have it. I'm happy we have documents of it. So I just wanted to talk about that. And yeah, I mean, if you're looking for shit to do this week, go watch those 4. You got documentaries. You got Decline of Western Civilization 1, 2, and 3. And go check out the HR doc, Finding Joseph. Well worth checking out. And also, speaking of Bad Brains, I did want to bring up on here, very, very sad, happened about like a week and a half ago. But speaking of HR, the original Bad Brains singer, pre-HR, before they were even really Bad Brains, and they're still playing jazz, was original singer Sidney McCray. He sadly did just pass away back on like September, I think 10th or 11th. So yeah, we're talking just like a week or so ago. But there is a GoFundMe up right now for burial assistance. He's also credited for exposing the rest of Bad Brains to punk rock. So he may not have been like the guy who you hear on those punk records, but let me tell you, this was the man that we have to thank for those guys hearing the Sex Pistols and the Dead Boys and the Ramones. Like, this is the dude. So, if you can afford it right now, pay your respects and, on GoFundMe, help bury a true legend and help out Sidney McCray's family with all that. I'll put a link in the description so you can also just go do that. But rest in peace to someone who, definite legend, and definitely someone we have to thank for a bunch of other legends as well, really. Because, goddamn, Bad Brains, that one's not new. I kind of, after watching The Decline, X, I have been more into X lately. But Bad Brains, I've been listening to them nonstop for the last 10 years now. Which still is when you think about it, you think of when the first record got released, it's I've only been listening for a decade, but I still discovered when I was 17, but you just listen to that and it's just goddamn, they are really one of the greatest of that era. Probably because once again, they were guys who are actually good, we're actually seasoned musicians. It's kind of the same thing with Fear. If you listen to their drummer spit sticks, it's insane what he's playing on there. And I never really thought of it until I think it was Josh Freese pointed it out, who, you want to talk about good drummers. I think that guy knows a good drummer when he sees one. And just talking about some of the stuff on the record, their first one, and I'd known those songs, but I go back and I listen again, I'm like, oh my God, he's right. Weird time signatures, just odd tempos, odd rhythms, that dude is not just a punk rock drummer. He's not just some guy who started playing drums because his friends needed a drummer. That guy knows what he's doing. And the rest of them as well, too. All of them were just really good musicians. You go back and listen to Fear, and you're like, holy shit, they're doing some stuff in there that really no other band was doing at all. And same thing with Bad Brains, just stuff in there, same with the reggae stuff, even on the first record, you have these thrashing, just fast numbers that they're just burning through, and then they slow down a little, and you get the reggae in there, so which is also just equally good. They're just as good as that too. You're not even mad. It's not even a thing where you're you don't like that the band kind of has two sides to them. You're oh, they're really good at both sides. So I'm just happy to hear anything the Bad Brains play. But yeah, just so good. So many good bands from that early era. And Circle Jerks. I've liked Circle Jerks for a while, but they're another one I've been listening to Group Sex a lot lately, which is very easy because that whole album is 16 minutes long. So I can listen to it from the drive from my house to the studio to come do this. I can listen to just about that entire record, and those are really the best records that you have a whole album and it's less than 20 minutes. If I ordered a pizza, it would probably take longer for that pizza to get here than it would to listen to the entire record. I could probably listen to it 2 times. And that's the sign, my friends, of a good record. But that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode of the Power Chord Hour podcast. I had fun just sitting here talking punk rock with you. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to stay connected with the show, we're all over online. We're at Power Chord Hour on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're on YouTube. Shout out to you if you're listening to this there right now, because I'm not great at plugging that. I do mention it on here, but I always forget to remind people, you can listen to the podcast on our YouTube page, and also tons of pre-podcast interviews on there with a bunch of bands. I try to do throwback episodes on here, and I have with some of the bigger bands, but there's a lot of older interviews I just haven't gotten around to putting on, or just kind of smaller artists that were more like time sensitive. But well worth checking out. You may even find bands you've never heard before. You might go listen to our old interviews and become a fan of them. So, go through our YouTube page. You'll find shit you've never heard on here. But yeah, we're all over there. We're on Spotify, which once again, maybe you're listening to us on there. Oh, a big one, actually. You can now hear us on the Amazon Music app, and I believe maybe Amazon.com as well. I don't know if it's just on the app, but if you go on the Amazon Music app, like you're going to listen to music, we're just on there now, as well as other podcasts. So you can just search Power Chord Hour and you'll find us. We'll pop up. All the episodes are on there, which I like because I do use my Amazon Prime account to listen to music on there. I don't have Prime Music, which fuck them for doing that, because as I say, Amazon, you can now listen to that. But, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago, before they had Amazon Music and it was just Amazon Prime Music and it was all the albums that came with your Prime subscription, there was it was insane what you had on there. Like, I didn't get why people had Spotify. I'm like, dude, like Amazon Prime Music, like if you download that app, you can stream like all these records. And then a few years later, they had to get the subscription thing. And they still have a bunch of good albums on there, but not to the point they once did. Now a lot of them are behind that paywall. But either way, we're not behind the paywall. You can listen to us spanking free. I don't know what spanking free means, but you can listen to us spanking free. And yeah, it's a new place to listen to us. So yeah, shout out to Amazon Music for putting podcasts on there. I'm stoked. Any place to put this is cool, because it just means more more chances for ears to hear this and hopefully enjoy what they're hearing. But yeah, so there's that. Hit me up, powerchord@gmail.com. Lots of shit to talk about. Like I mentioned way earlier on in the show, like an hour and a half ago. If you come from a smaller place like me, where like you going to shows, you got to travel for. Like I'd love to hear from you. Like, do you do the same thing? It's like, you kind of plan it out. It's like, you go hit up record stores beforehand. You have like, you go hit up like the restaurants or bars or whatever in those areas. I'd like to hear from other people, because you do realize, like, even though I was like the only one of my friends who would do that, and I have cool ass friends who would want to go do those things with me. Like, did it sound interesting to them to go drive like 3 hours to see a punk show? But I know there's a lot of other people who are into that, and I'd love to hear from you. So hit me up. We're actually out of stickers. I know this is normally where I'm like, yo, hit me up for free stickers. We're out of them. I'll probably order some more sometime soon, because I can't believe it. We went through 250 of those. I got them back in like June, and yeah, in like 4 months, we've gotten rid of 250 stickers. So shout out to everyone who's hit us up, and I'll probably get some more. But until then, I do have a guitar pick, so hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. I'll send you some. And if you'd like a t-shirt, we do have Power Chord Hour t-shirts. I'll send you one of those for free, but those, all you got to do, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or I'll give you a shirt. It's a better, I guess a better way of putting it. Scratch my back, and I'll give you a free shirt. Rate and review the podcast on iTunes. And just screenshot it. Just send it to me somewhere, whether it's email or on social media. Just send me a little screenshot that you rated and reviewed us, and I'll send you a t-shirt, and I'll throw some pics in there and give you a big old thank you. But yeah, that is all she wrote. And, since we are talking a bunch of punk rock on here, and he was not actually in the decline of Western civilization, but goddamn, he was one of the first ones to really start punk rock. And Paul Cook of the Sex Pistols, drummer of the Sex Pistols, also played drums with, Johnny Thunders on a lot of his solo stuff. And Iggy Pop, I think, too. I almost want to say Paul Cook played on some solo Iggy Pop records. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But a lot of those guys did play on things you'd never... Like, I was talking about Walter Lure of the Heartbreakers, who sadly passed away a few weeks ago, which, rest in peace to a legend. But a lot of people don't know he played lead guitar on 3 Ramones records in the 80s. Like things like that where you don't realize, or same with the Heartbreakers, or like Chinese Rocks, Dee Dee Ramone wrote, and Richard Hell also has a credit on, because he wrote, I forget which line it was, but I think he literally wrote one line of Chinese Rocks. So he also gets a little credit there. But how that was a Ramone song, and then covered by, really actually not covered by them. It was written by Dee Dee Ramone. The Ramones didn't want to do it because it was about drugs. Then it went to the Heartbreakers. Then it got big, or the Heartbreakers are also kind of being like, yo, it's our song, and kind of not giving, I think, them credit. So then the Ramones are kind of like, nah, fuck that. We're going to record it. And then they did it. And I mean, it's kind of a cover, but it isn't a cover because Dee Ramone wrote it and originally was going to use it for the Ramones and just all that like back stuff. But anyways, Paul Cook, I interviewed him a few years ago. I had the chance when the Professionals got back together and put out a record. And he was just doing a little press. Just got to do a nice little short interview with him. But hey, I got to talk to a living legend. I mean, that is still probably one of the most nervous interviews I've ever had. I was just so goddamn nervous. Like, that's the drummer of the Sex Pistols. That's it. Like, you know, if you get to the beginning of punk rock, for me, it's like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols. You know, there's like the precursors, then you get into all that. But I mean, as far as original punk rockers, I mean, you know, for the UK, the Sex Pistols. For, you know, America, you got the Ramones. And I've also interviewed a Ramone, which is also so goddamn cool. But that Paul Cook one, I think I will put that up for a throwback episode later this week. So I mean, if you want to hear me talk to the man who, you know, played drums on God Save the Queen and Anarchy in the UK and all that rad shit, you know, listen to that on Thursday. I'll put that up. But yeah, so that'll be that for this week. Thank you so much. And obviously the radio show every Friday night now for 2 hours, 10 Eastern to midnight, 7 to 9 Pacific Standard Time. And that one is on 107.9 WRFA here in Jamestown, New York, where I'm currently recording this in the WRFA studios. But as every Friday night, you can hear me play a bunch of music. And actually this week I'm going to play, I'm not sure if I'm going to play 70s too. I probably will. I feel like that's fair game. But I'm probably going to play all old school punk for 2 hours this week. It's kind of celebrate this episode and just those early days of punk rock, like, because I got to throw in, you know, like that, like if I want to play like the Sex Pistols or like some of the really early Bad Brains and Ramones, you know, we're getting into late 70s there. So it won't be all 80s, but I'll do 70s, 80s punk rock. Just all the bands I've been talking about tonight, just playing them for 2 hours on a Friday and just talking about punk rock and all that. So, you know, there's some fun stuff later this week. You know, if this isn't enough for you, we'll have that throwback episode on here on Thursday. And if you want to check out the radio show Friday night, play a bunch of punk for you. But that's going to be the episode. Thank you so much. And for the Power Chord Hour, I'm Anthony Merchant. Thanks for listening.